Dr. Han Ji-won stood at the center of the massive Federation Council chamber. She looked very small compared to the towering alien representatives who sat in rising circles around her. The chamber was silent except for the soft hum of translation devices and the occasional whisper of breathing apparatus. Ji-won cleared her throat and adjusted her formal blue diplomatic uniform. "Honorable members of the Federation," she began, her voice steady and clear, "Earth would like to propose something exciting. The first ever Interstellar Olympics." A wave of confused chirps, clicks, and electronic buzzes filled the room. High Counselor Tara, a tall being with silver-blue skin and 4 arms, raised their upper right hand for silence. "Explain this concept, Dr. Han," Tara said, their voice translated into perfect standard English by the chamber systems. Ji-won smiled and pressed a button on her tablet. A hologram appeared above her head, showing scenes from Earth's Olympic history. For thousands of years, humans have gathered every 4 years to compete in athletic events. We test our speed, strength, and skill against each other in the spirit of friendly competition. The hologram showed runners sprinting on tracks, swimmers cutting through water, and gymnasts flying through the air. Several alien representatives leaned forward in their seats, their various sensory organs focused intently on the display. "But why?" asked a representative from the Centauri system, their tentacles waving in confusion. "What is the purpose of such physical exertion?" "To bring people together," Ji-won explained. "To celebrate what we can achieve when we push ourselves to our limits. And now that Earth has joined the Federation, we believe it's time to expand this tradition to include all species." Park Do-hyun, the newly appointed Olympic Committee chair, stepped forward. He was a tall man with broad shoulders and gray hair at his temples. "We have already begun designing new events that will be fair and accessible to all species," he said. "Imagine the unity we could create, the bonds we could form through friendly competition." The chamber erupted in discussion. Some representatives seemed excited, others worried, and a few appeared completely baffled by the concept. High Counselor Tara raised all 4 hands this time to restore order. "Dr. Han," Tara said, "your species has been part of the Federation for less than 5 Earth years. Are you certain you can organize an event of this scale?" Ji-won nodded confidently. "We have assembled an excellent team. Our events coordinator, Kim Yoo-jin, has experience organizing multi-species sporting events in the Mars colonies." A hologram changed to show Yoo-jin's credentials. She was a younger woman with short black hair and bright, clever eyes. Her record showed successful events that had brought together humans, Mars colonists, and early alien visitors. "And what guarantee do we have that these games will be safe?" asked a representative from the Proxima system, their crystalline form shimmering with concern. "All events will be thoroughly tested and approved by safety committees from each participating world," Do-hyun assured them. "We want to challenge our athletes, not endanger them." Ji-won could see the council was warming to the idea. She had expected this. Humans weren't the only species that enjoyed a challenge. They just tended to be more creative about it. After 3 hours of debate, High Counselor Tara called for a vote. The chamber's walls lit up with thousands of glowing dots as representatives made their choices. When the lights settled, the result was clear. Earth would host the first Interstellar Olympics. As Ji-won and Do-hyun left the chamber, she couldn't help but smile. The council had no idea what they had just approved. Behind them, she could hear Tara appointing a committee to oversee the human organizers, just to be safe. That evening, in their temporary quarters on the Federation station, Ji-won sent a message to Earth. "Proposal approved. Begin Phase 1. She knew that back home, Kim Yoo-jin was probably already drawing up plans that would make the aliens question everything they thought they knew about sports. 3 months after the Federation approved the Interstellar Olympics, Lee Min-ah stood in front of a room full of alien representatives. The sports director's presentation screen showed detailed diagrams of the proposed Olympic events. The aliens stared at her with various combinations of eyes, sensory stalks, and optical processors. Next on our list, Minna said cheerfully, is zero-G wrestling. She clicked to the next slide, showing a large spherical arena floating in space. Two athletes enter the sphere and attempt to push their opponent out of the designated competition zone. Simple and straightforward. A representative from the gas giant planets raised their vapor tendril. But where are the safety barriers? That would defeat the purpose of the challenge, Minna explained. Don't worry, all athletes will wear emergency teleport beacons. If they drift too far, they'll be instantly transported back to the safety zone. The room filled with concerned murmurs. Kim Yoo-jin, sitting at the back of the room, tried to hide her smile behind her tablet. The events coordinator had spent weeks helping Minna design these slightly modified Olympic events. Moving on to Asteroid Parker, Minna continued. She showed a video simulation of athletes jumping between small asteroids, using minimal jet assists to navigate through a complex course. This is madness, buzzed a crystalline being from Proxima. The collision risks alone are completely manageable, Minna interrupted smoothly. We've mapped every asteroid's trajectory. The course is mathematically perfect. She didn't mention that the human team was already practicing on a similar course in the asteroid belt, with far less safety equipment. Park Do-hyun watched from the doorway, nodding in approval. The Olympic Committee chair knew exactly what his team was doing. Every event they proposed was technically safe, but designed to showcase human adaptability and their strange comfort with controlled chaos. The final event presentation of the day made several alien representatives emit distress pheromones. Vacuum surfing, Minna announced, showing athletes riding solar wind currents on specially designed boards. A beautiful demonstration of particle physics and athletic skill. We must discuss modifications, said the Federation safety officer, their metallic skin reflecting the presentation lights. Perhaps add force fields. More substantial safety systems. Of course, Minna agreed pleasantly. We're open to all safety suggestions. Behind her back, she gave Yoo-jin a subtle thumbs up. They had intentionally proposed extreme versions of each event, knowing they would be asked to scale them back to exactly the level they actually wanted. After the meeting, Minna and Yoo-jin joined Do-hyun in his office on the Olympic Planning Station. The room's window looked out at the massive construction project that would become Olympic Ring 1. How did they take it? Do-hyun asked, pouring tea for his team. Just as we expected, Yoo-jin replied, accepting her cup. They're scared, but also intrigued. 3 species have already submitted athlete applications for vacuum surfing. Minna laughed. Humans aren't the only ones who enjoy a good challenge. We're just better at making them look crazy. And the backup plans? Do-hyun asked quietly. All in place, Minna confirmed. Every safety modification they requested was already part of our actual design. They think they're making the events safer. Really, they're just helping us perfect them. As they talked, construction drones outside the window continued assembling the enormous sports complex. Soon, it would host the greatest show humanity had ever helped organize. The aliens thought they were reigning in human excess. In reality, humanity was about to introduce the galaxy to something it had never seen before, the true spirit of Olympic competition. On her tablet, Yoo-jin reviewed messages from Earth's training facilities. The human team's preparation methods would have given the Federation safety officer a heart attack, if they had a heart. But that was a problem for another day. 1 month before the Interstellar Olympics, the Federation's communication channels exploded with activity. Someone had leaked training footage from Earth's Olympic preparation facilities, and the galaxy was in an uproar. The video showed team captain Choi Tae-young leading his athletes through what the humans called standard training exercises. In one sequence, they practiced zero-G wrestling inside a rapidly spinning centrifuge. Another clip featured them running obstacle courses through active volcanic regions, wearing only basic protective suits. The most controversial footage showed the vacuum surfing team practicing in the upper layers of Jupiter's atmosphere. The athletes rode the gas giants' violent storms, using them to perfect their techniques for handling solar winds. High Counselor Anxtara called an emergency meeting. The council chamber was far less organized than usual, with representatives talking over each other in various languages. Coach Kang Hai-jin stood calmly at the center, her posture relaxed despite the chaos around her. "Would you explain these training methods?" Tara asked, their forearms gesturing at the floating hologram of the leaked footage. "Of course," Hai-jin replied with a pleasant smile. "We believe in preparing our athletes for any possible situation. The centrifuge training ensures they can handle unexpected gravity changes. The volcano courses teach heat management and quick thinking. As for Jupiter," she paused, "well, after that, solar winds will feel quite gentle." A representative from the methane-breathing worlds burbled in protest. "This is beyond dangerous. It violates at least 15 safety protocols." Hai-jin pulled out her tablet and began reading. Section 47 of the Olympic Safety Guidelines states that training methods must ensure athlete safety. All our athletes wear the latest protective gear. Section 51 allows for environmental training. We simply chose environments that would challenge our team. The Federation's medical officer, a beam made of shimmering energy, moved forward. "We have reviewed the health data from your athletes. Surprisingly, there are no serious injuries. In fact, their physical condition has improved. Humans are very adaptable," Hai-jin explained. "We learn best under pressure." Literally, in some cases, she added, showing a graph of atmospheric pressure training data. As the debate continued, Dr. Han Jae-won watched from her observation pod. She had expected this crisis. In fact, she had carefully planned it. The leaked footage showed only the most shocking moments of training, carefully edited to look more dangerous than they were. In her earpiece, she heard Kim Yoo-jin whisper, "They're so focused on the obvious dangers, they haven't noticed the real training happening in the background." She was right. Behind the dramatic scenes of volcanic training, careful observers might have noticed human athletes practicing in rapidly changing artificial gravity fields. While everyone worried about the Jupiter storms, they missed the team perfecting new techniques for energy conservation in space. The meeting ended with a compromise. Earth's team would agree to reduce the intensity of their visible training methods. In return, the Federation would not disqualify them from the Games. That evening, Coach Hai-jin met with Choi Tae-dong in the secure training facility beneath the Pacific Ocean. The underwater base had been their real training ground all along. "Did they suspect anything?" Tae-young asked, watching his team practice in the facility's quantum gravity chamber. "No," Hai-jin replied. "They were too busy worrying about the volcanoes to ask why we needed an underwater base. Sometimes the best way to hide is to give people something obvious to look at." Through the observation window, athletes moved with impossible grace through shifting gravity fields. They had learned to read the smallest changes in their environment, to react before their bodies knew they needed to move. The leaked footage had done its job. The Federation thought they had caught humans being reckless. In reality, they had missed the true innovation happening right in front of them. In 1 month, they would understand just how much they had underestimated human ingenuity. Olympic Ring 1 sparkled against the backdrop of space, its massive circular structure gleaming in the light of Earth's sun. Inside the main arena, entertainment director Song Jae-yun watched the final rehearsal for the opening ceremony. Thousands of seats surrounded the central zero-gravity performance area, designed to give every species a perfect view, regardless of their sensory organs. 5 minutes until we begin broadcasting across the galaxy, announced the station's eye. Representatives from over 300 worlds had gathered for this historic event. The station's gravity generators created different zones to accommodate various species, from high-gravity beings to those who preferred to float freely. Jae-yun touched her communications device. "All performance teams, take your positions." She had spent months planning this ceremony, carefully balancing the need to impress with the need to avoid causing panic among the alien delegates. The lights dimmed. A single beam illuminated High Counselor Anxtara as they floated to the central platform. "Welcome to the first Interstellar Olympics," their voice echoed through the arena. "Today marks a historic moment of unity among our worlds." As Inxterra spoke, the first performers entered the zero-gravity zone. They were a mixed group of humans and aliens, demonstrating the modified sports in perfect harmony. The audience watched in amazement as they moved through space with practiced grace. Then came the part that made Ji-Yun hold her breath, the historical tribute to human sports. The massive screens around the arena lit up with carefully selected clips from Earth's sporting history. They showed the evolution of human athletics, from ancient Olympics to modern extreme sports. "Are those humans jumping off cliffs with artificial wings?" asked a gaseous being floating near the top of the arena. "Look at them climbing those frozen waterfalls," exclaimed another, their crystalline structure vibrating with concern. Dr. Han Ji-won, sitting in the diplomatic section, noticed several alien representatives shifting uncomfortably in their seats. The presentation was having exactly the effect they had planned. It reminded everyone that humans had been testing their limits long before they reached space. The ceremony continued with demonstrations of each new Olympic event. The zero-G wrestling exhibition drew gasps as two athletes spun and twisted through space, showing perfect control of their movements. The Asteroid Parker team performed a simplified version of their routine, using holographic asteroids inside the arena. But it was the vacuum surfing demonstration that truly captured everyone's attention. Human athletes rode beams of focused light through the arena, performing maneuvers that seemed to defy physics. Their movements were so precise that even the Federation's safety officer had to admit it looked less dangerous than the training videos. Park Do-hyun watched from the control room, nodding with satisfaction. "How are the viewers responding?" he asked. "The broadcast is reaching every corner of Federation space," Ji-Yun replied, checking her data screens. "Betting systems across the galaxy are experiencing unprecedented activity. Several species have already submitted last-minute applications to compete." As the ceremony reached its final, all the athletes gathered in a three-dimensional formation representing unity among the stars. The lights created patterns of connected constellations, symbolizing the bridges being built between worlds. But behind the beauty of the moment, the human organizers knew this was just the beginning. They had shown enough to intrigue their audience while keeping their best innovations hidden. Tomorrow, the real games would begin, and the galaxy would learn what human athletes could really do. In her private viewing pod, Coach Kang Hae-jin smiled as she watched the alien spectators applaud. They had no idea that this elegant ceremony was just the calm before the storm. The first 3 days of competition changed everything the Federation thought they knew about human abilities. Team strategist Yoon Sang-ho sat in the Human Command Center, watching multiple screens showing different events. His careful planning was working better than anyone had expected. In the anti-gravity marathon, human athletes were using what looked like clumsy movements to gain advantage. Whenever they bumped into a wall or spun out of control, they somehow turned these mistakes into forward momentum. The aliens didn't realize that every awkward motion was carefully planned. "They're calling it controlled chaos in the Federation news," said Dr. Han Ji-won, walking into the command center. 3 different species have filed complaints about our unusual techniques." Sang-ho nodded, his eyes fixed on the screens. "Did they find any rule violations?" "No," Ji-won smiled. "Every movement follows the regulations exactly. They just never imagined someone would interpret the rules this way." On the main screen, Kim Da-hai was competing in the zero-G wrestling finals against a champion from a high-gravity world. The alien athlete was 3 times her size and naturally stronger. But Da-hai wasn't trying to overpower her opponent. Instead, she used quick, small movements to change her direction unpredictably. When the alien tried to grab her, she would already be somewhere else. It looked like she was randomly dodging. But each motion followed a complex pattern that Sang-ho had calculated based on the alien species' reaction time. "Look at the betting pools," Coach Kang Hae-jin said, bringing up another screen. No one expected humans to place in the top 10 for most events. Now we're leading in 5 categories. In the asteroid parkour event, human athletes were shocking everyone with their unusual approach. Instead of carefully planning each jump between asteroids, they seemed to make split-second decisions. The aliens didn't understand that humans had trained to read subtle changes in gravitational fields, letting them adjust their course mid-jump. The Federation Science Council wants to study our training methods, Jai-1 reported. They think we must have some secret technology helping our athletes. Sang-Ho laughed quietly. The only technology we used was understanding our opponents. Every species has patterns in how they move and react. Humans are just better at spotting and using those patterns. A loud cheer erupted from the spectator areas as De-Hai won her match. She had never tried to push her opponent out of the competition zone. Instead, she had maneuvered so the alien athlete used too much force and pushed themselves out. They still don't understand, Hai-Jin said, watching the confused reactions of the alien commentators. Humans aren't winning because we're stronger or faster. We're winning because we're unpredictable. As the day's events ended, Sang-Ho updated his strategy files. The aliens had started to copy some human techniques, but they were missing the key point. It wasn't about the specific moves. It was about adapting and finding new solutions that no one else had considered. In the athlete recovery area, De-Hai was explaining her victory to a group of curious alien competitors. The secret, she told them, is not to fight against zero gravity. You have to make friends with it, dance with it, let it surprise you. The aliens nodded politely, but their confusion was clear. They had spent years mastering precise, controlled movements. The idea of embracing chaos and uncertainty went against everything they believed about athletic competition. Little did they know, the most surprising events were yet to come. Sang-Ho looked at his schedule for tomorrow and smiled. The space station repair race would show everyone just how creative humans could be when faced with a challenge. The space station repair race changed everything. Security Chief Baz Sunwoo stood in the control room, watching multiple screens as the event unfolded. She knew this would be the moment when the Federation's patience finally ran out. The event seemed simple enough. Teams had to repair a damaged section of a space station within a time limit. Each team received the same tools and replacement parts. But the humans approached the challenge in a way no one expected. While other species carefully followed standard repair procedures, the human team led by Choi Tae-young started taking apart their spare parts. They rebuilt them into new tools that technically didn't break any rules because they were made from approved materials. "What are they doing?" demanded the Proxima representative, their crystalline form flashing with alarm. "Those parts are meant to fix the station, not build new devices. The rules state that teams must use only provided materials," Sunwoo replied calmly. "They don't specify how those materials must be used." On the main screen, Tae-young's team had created a makeshift assembly line in space. They reformed metal panels into curved shapes that could be installed faster than the original flat ones. They even turned some spare wiring into a simple testing device that worked twice as fast as the standard tools. High Counselor Angstara called an emergency meeting right in the middle of the event. "This is not repair work," they declared. "This is reconstruction." Dr. Han Jae-won stepped forward to defend the human team. Every material they're using came from the approved supply list. Their methods are unusual, but their results are excellent. The repaired section is testing at 120% of normal integrity. The betting systems across the galaxy were in chaos. Nobody had imagined that repair work could be turned into what one alien commentator called creative engineering combat. Park Do-hyun watched from his office as more alien teams began withdrawing from upcoming events. The Federation medical officer had reported that several species were experiencing stress reactions from watching human competition methods. "We need to address this," Security Chief Sunwoo said, entering Do-hyun's office. 3 more delegations have threatened to leave. They're saying our apparent chaos is a form of psychological warfare. Is it our fault that they find creativity frightening? Do-hyun asked, But he knew they had to do something. The whole point of the Olympics was to bring species together, not drive them apart. Meanwhile, in the athlete preparation area, Coach Kang Haijin was dealing with a different problem. Other teams had started asking for training advice. They wanted to learn how humans could think so quickly and adapt so easily to new situations. The secret isn't in the techniques, she told them. It's in accepting that there's always more than one way to solve a problem. The day ended with an unprecedented announcement. The Federation Council would allow the games to continue, but they added a new rule. All teams must submit their problem-solving strategies for approval before each event. In the Human Command Center, team strategist Yoon Sang-ho smiled as he prepared the paperwork. "They think this will limit our creativity," he said to Jae-won. "But they forget. Adapting to new rules is exactly what humans do best." That night, as the station's lights dimmed to simulate evening, the human team gathered to plan their next moves. They had caused quite a stir with their repair race performance, but tomorrow would bring the multi-dimensional relay race. And for that event, they had saved their most surprising strategies. The multi-dimensional relay race was the most complex event in the Interstellar Olympics. Athletes had to pass their batons through zones of different gravity, radiation levels, and even time dilation effects. Kim Da-hai stood at the starting position, her heart steady as she waited for the signal. The human team had submitted their strategy documents as required by the new rules. What they wrote was completely true, yet somehow failed to capture what they were about to do. Dr. Nam Woo-jin, head of the Federation's scientific committee, watched from his observation post with growing interest. "The race will begin in 30 seconds, announced the station's AI. Teams from 12 different species took their positions around the circular track. Each zone they would pass through showed up as a different color in the holographic course map. The signal flashed. Da-hai pushed off exactly 1 second after everyone else. The alien spectators thought this was a mistake, but team strategist Yoon Sang-ho had calculated this delay perfectly. "Watch closely," Coach Kang Haijin said to the Federation observers. "You're about to see why we spent so much time studying physics." Da-hai entered the first zone, where gravity shifted randomly every few seconds. Instead of fighting the changes, she let each shift carry her forward, as if she were surfing on waves of gravity. She passed 3 competitors before reaching the first checkpoint. The second runner on the human team, Lee Minna, took the baton. She faced the radiation zone, where different energy levels created visible patterns in space. Other athletes tried to avoid the highest radiation areas, following safe paths that the Federation had mapped out. Minna did something different. She had memorized how radiation affected the magnetic field of her suit. By timing her movements just right, she used the radiation patterns to push herself forward, like a sail catching solar wind. "Impossible," whispered a Federation physicist. "They're using environmental hazards as propulsion." Dr. Nam typed rapidly on his datapad. The humans weren't just adapting to conditions, they were turning obstacles into advantages. His research team had never seen anything like it. The third leg of the relay entered the time dilation zone. Here, time moved differently in different parts of the course. Most species tried to stay in the fastest time zones to maintain their speed. The human runner, Park Jae-ho, took a completely different approach. Jae-ho deliberately moved between time zones in a pattern that looked random but wasn't. Each transition created a tiny energy pulse. He had learned to harvest these pulses for extra speed. The Federation observers couldn't believe what they were seeing. "They're playing with physics like it's a game," Dr. Nam said, his voice filled with wonder. "Every problem we put in their way becomes a tool they can use." The final runner, Choi Ta-young, took the baton for the last leg. This section combined all previous challenges: gravity shifts, radiation, and time dilation. The course designers had expected athletes to carefully pick their way through this chaos. Instead, Ta-young seemed to dance through it. Every danger became an opportunity. Every obstacle turned into a stepping stone. He crossed the finish line, 2 full minutes ahead of the second-place team. In the observation room, Dr. Nam turned to High Counselor Terra. "I request permission to start a new research project," he said. "We need to understand how humans think. They don't just solve problems. They change the nature of the problems themselves." The human team celebrated their victory quietly. They knew this win would change everything. The Federation would never look at humans the same way again. And tomorrow was the closing ceremony, where Dr. Han Jae-won had one final surprise planned. The closing ceremony of the first Interstellar Olympics took place in an atmosphere of mixed emotions. Olympic Ring 1's main arena was filled with representatives from every competing world. The station's lights created patterns that shifted between the colors of all participating species' home stars. Dr. Han Ji-won stood at the central podium, looking out at the gathered delegates. The human team had earned an unprecedented number of medals, but that wasn't what made her smile. It was the stack of documents on her podium. Applications from 27 species requesting to train with human coaches. High Counselor Terra spoke first. "These games have shown us something unexpected," they said, their 4 hands moving in formal gestures. "We came to compete. We learned to question everything we thought we knew about competition." The main screen showed highlights from the games. The Federation had edited them carefully, but they couldn't hide how humans had transformed each event. Zero-G wrestling had become a dance of physics. Asteroid parkour looked more like practical geometry. The space station repair race had turned into an engineering revolution. Park Do-hyun, watching from his position near the podium, noticed how the alien athletes now studied the human team with different eyes. Not with fear or confusion, but with curiosity and respect. "The Federation Council has drafted new regulations," Terra announced. "Future games will include guidelines about creative problem-solving and adaptive strategies." They paused. "We have also created a special committee, led by Dr. Nam Woo-jin, to study what we are calling the human approach to challenges." Dr. Nam stood up from his seat, his research team already taking notes. They had spent the past week interviewing human athletes, trying to understand how they saw problems as opportunities. Then came the moment Jae-won had planned for. She stepped forward to give her closing speech. "We thank the Federation for letting Earth host these games," she began. "We have learned much about working together across species. That's why Earth would like to submit its bid to host the next Interstellar Olympics." The arena erupted in a chaos of voices, translators working overtime to keep up with all the reactions. Security Chief Ba Sunwoo watched the confusion with amusement. The humans had planned this moment carefully. "Our next proposal includes events designed by all species," Jae-won continued calmly. "We want to learn your ways of thinking, just as you have studied ours. Together, we can create games that challenge everyone equally." Coach Kang Hae-jin, sitting with her team, nodded in approval. The aliens didn't realize it yet, but humans had achieved something more important than winning medals. They had shown the galaxy that there was always another way to look at a problem. As the ceremony ended, team strategist Yoon Sang-ho handed out copies of Earth's new proposal. The document included innovative ideas from every competing species, combined in ways nobody had considered before. High Counselor Terra created one final committee before leaving the station. Its purpose: to understand and safely channel human creativity in future sporting events. The name made Jae-won laugh. They still thought they could predict what humans would do next. That evening, as the human team prepared to return to Earth, Kim Da-hai looked out at the stars through the station's observation deck. "Do you think they'll ever understand?" she asked Dr. Nam, who had joined her for one final interview. "Perhaps not," he replied. "His research device is recording everything. But maybe that's the point. Humans have shown us that not understanding something doesn't mean you can't learn from it." The first Interstellar Olympics had changed the galaxy's view of humanity forever. And somewhere on Earth, a new team of athletes was already training, ready to show the universe even more surprising ways to think about possible and impossible.